Here with Bo Nickal, head of UFC 309. You are making your MMA debut at Madison Square Garden here,
Right.
but it is not your debut.
Mm-hmm.
You have some history at this venue, this historic venue. Why don't you tell us a little bit about
Yeah,
this?
I do. Yeah. So 2016 NCAA wrestling tournament, I was fortunate enough to compete at MSG. It was an amazing experience, but didn't go my way in the end. I ended up taking second place, so it's a pretty devastating moment for me. But I'm excited now to get some redemption here. I didn't think there was another chance for me to compete at MSG while I was competing in wrestling. Now, since I'm fighting, I was pretty pumped about the opportunity. So we'll right that wrong.
It wasn't a total loss. I mean, you guys won the team championship, right?
Yeah, that's a good point. We did win the team championship, so it was tough to celebrate that night though, just because put a lot of work in, and then for me, not achieving my goal was I think a big moment, and positively and negatively. It hurt then, but it motivated me a ton the years after that, and still motivates me to this day. So now I'm kind of coming full circle with it.
And it was last time you, as an NCAA wrestler, were not an individual champion too. So
yeah.
You go on to win 3 national championships.
I can't be too mad.
What was it really about that night that, when you think back, like really did make you a better competitor?
Great question. So I think that when I look back at that night, I really let the moment, kind of be too big, and competing in MSG obviously added to that, but as a 19-year-old kid in front of 20,000 people, I think I just needed to kind of experience that loss and feel that devastation to just continue to be motivated to push myself as hard as I can past that. And for me, even to this day, I always remember that feeling. It's funny, I was at the Rangers game last night, and it was like a lot of emotion coming back because I was walking backstage and I saw just like some of the spots that I was like crying in and stuff like that, and I was like, wow, that's so crazy. It was right there almost 10 years ago, and now we're back. But yeah, I think just a lot of maturing and figuring out how to deal with those moments mentally. That's really what the biggest lesson was for me.
So this is, I mean, you kind of alluded to this, but this is like a bit of a redemptive opportunity for you in that sense, right?
Yeah, 100%. I would say for sure it's a redemption opportunity. There's not too many people that get to compete in MSG in general, and to compete in it twice is a big opportunity. Especially, I have that extra motivation, a little bit of a sour taste in my mouth from the last one. So, I'm excited to go out there, and I feel like really, really prepared for this moment, especially, like as I mentioned, with the past experience.
Sure. And, you're 6-0 coming into this one in mixed martial arts as a pro. The 2 amateur wins as well.
Yeah.
They can. But then, 4 of these wins have come by submission, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're going against a known submission ace. He loves the triangle choke. He's the record holder in the UFC, Paul Craig. There's something about this, though, because he's probably someone who's going to be much more comfortable off his back, whereas you, as the wrestler, you certainly love to be on top. How do you kind of like look at this aspect of the fight, which almost like it seems guaranteed on the surface to develop? We don't know that, but
yeah, it's interesting. It's an interesting dynamic. It's definitely a dangerous matchup. I think that as you mentioned, the positioning battle of where I generally am versus where he generally is. That's my strong position and his strong position. So it's going to be, I think, a chess match of sorts. And I think that wherever the fight goes, I'll be able to, just again control that position, have the advantage. I feel very comfortable and confident from the feet, from the cage and the clinch, on the ground, wherever we're at. I've put a lot of time and effort into training and developing my skills in every area of mixed martial arts. Of course, everybody knows the wrestling from my background, but the other skills are developing nicely. And so I'm looking forward to just showcasing that I'm a more complete fighter and not just a wrestler.
I am, though, curious. Obviously, there's all those other skills, but with your wrestling in particular, because not everything makes the smooth transition as a useful skill from wrestling to mixed martial arts. What have you kind of learned about that in these last 3 years since you've transitioned over?
Well, it's definitely different. It's just a different game. In my mind, I'm a very competitive person, so anytime I'm playing a game, I'm looking for just the best strategy. And with the wrestling, you have to forget some habits that you maybe formed over a long time, and you also have to just be open and willing to do new things and be creative, listen to people. And so, yeah, there's just when you're playing a different game with different rules, you got to adjust if you want to be successful. And so that's, for me, the main priority is just get better at fighting. And so, yeah, we're making adjustments accordingly.
You used to wrestle 30 times a year, really more than that because you're doing all these other competitions at the time during your college years. But
Right.
you've slowed down. I mean, this is a big change for someone like you who's used to constant competition. How has that been for you transitioning to a much slower pace?
Yeah, I think that for me, my favorite part of what I do is competing. So it's hard to not compete as much as I would like to. I would love to fight every weekend if I could, but just given the way the sport works, it's not realistic. And so I feel like I try to just really lock in on the daily basis because I don't have competition for months at a time, and I got to keep my mind, I guess, occupied with that and feeling like the goal isn't so far away, right? I think sometimes people will maybe lose focus, they drift away from their discipline, their training, and for me, there's really none of that because I'm able to stay locked in, and that's just, I think, just from years and years of training and being able to push my body in that way. So yeah, it's definitely a big adjustment, but I feel like I just try to give myself mental cues to kind of get back into focus on a daily basis.
But even as a prospect, I mean, you are, by all intents and purposes, you're an MMA prospect, albeit a very highly touted one, pretty much the highest in the sport. Usually a prospect is taking 5-6 fights at this time in their progress. You're about 3 years in.
Yeah.
Does it feel kind of strange to look at maybe peers that have gone down this road and say, okay, I've only been able to get in there 6 times. How does that maybe both help and hurt?
It hurts because I just don't have the cage time that other people have. I've had less than 10 minutes in the cage in total in my pro career, and most people get that in one fight. And so I think that's, as far as the experience goes, that's a negative, but you look at the positives. I'm healthy. I've obviously have a 100% finish rate, and a lot of people want to see me fight. So, for me, again, the main focus is just developing, improving, getting better. The result of the fight is kind of secondary, right? Like, if I just go out there, I focus on my effort, my attitude, stay positive, and enjoy what I do, then the results will take care of themselves. So that's for me. I shifted the focus from being result-oriented and goal-oriented to just the process and enjoying the journey.
You've been a pay-per-view fighter since the Contender Series. Now this is your 4th one. Fourth, yeah. Make sure I got it right. With there's other ways that you can kind of get exposure, get experience in that kind of thing. There's headlining ESPN cards or ABC cards, things like that. Do those appeal to you, or are you comfortable with just being I'm on pay-per-view and eventually I'm going to be headlining these?
I love fighting no matter what. So I'd be comfortable to be on whatever card the UFC wants to put me on. Fortunately, they've put me on the biggest cards and I've had the biggest opportunities. So I'm very grateful for that, very appreciative of that. But I just love to fight. So if my next fight's in the Apex and in front of 50 people, that's fine as well. But I think that it just goes to show the type of draw I am, how many people want to watch me, and the support that I have from the wrestling community and that growing community of fans. So I don't think that they're putting me on pay-per-view cards, UFC 300, like these MSG, like these massive shows because for no reason, right? They're doing it. It's a little bit to build me, but it's also because a lot of people want to watch me.
Sure, and as a result of that, that can only help your case when you get a little bit closer to that title picture. How soon do you kind of really expect your name to be the one that's like, all right, they're going to give me a title shot now?
I think I got a lot of work to do, in my opinion. I'm always going to have a lot of work to do. Even when I'm the champ, there's still a lot of development to be done. So I'm not really in any type of, there's no limits on the timeline of the way that it needs to go in my mind. I'm just focused on development, improving, getting better. If it happens in a year, great. If it happens in 3 years, great. I just know where I'm headed. I know my trajectory. And that's really what I'm concerned with. It's not when it's going to happen. It's just getting better, improving every day.
And not to get the cart before the horse here. Obviously, you got Paul Craig in front of you. You've got other fights in front of you as well before we get to the point where you might be lined up against the guy that I think is inevitable for you in a lot of ways, Khamzat Chimaev. His wrestling, your wrestling. If you were to look at that kind of like today, how do you kind of break down the way you guys might match up?
It's been interesting to watch him fight. I'm honestly a big fan. I love his style. I think that It's super aggressive, very dominant. His last performance was incredible, and so I think that what I believe and what a lot of people believe is that when you look at the division, the landscape of it, you don't really see another strong grappler, another person that would be able to kind of withstand that style outside of me. And I think that makes for an exciting matchup. Obviously, with the Russia versus USA, that makes for another exciting part of the matchup. And my view of it has always been, I think this guy is one of the best, if not the best guys in the world, and I want to test myself. I want to see how far I can go in this sport, and my goal isn't just to be an average fighter or be a guy that competes in the UFC. Like, I want to be one of the best ever, and to do that, I got to beat the best guys. So, for me, that's just a challenge that I'm excited for, and it'll happen eventually, and it'll be fun. I'll be pumped about it.